There's a line from a Gil Scott-Heron song, and the line is, "The revolution will not be televised." The revolution will not be televised. It's a fantastic line. He's dead now, Gil Scott-Heron. But to me, it's starting to acquire a new kind of meaning, you know what I mean? Because in a sense, I think it's got two meanings, actually. On the one account, it's this meaning of televised is, I guess, how Gil Scott-Heron meant it. You know, that if there is a revolution, whether it be a cultural revolution or a political revolution, it won't take place in front of television cameras. The news media, the entertainment media will inevitably be elsewhere. And I think that's certainly still the case. You know, the various Occupy movements is a case in point in that, isn't it? You know, the news media has tended to either not look at them at all, or when it has looked at them, it's been in a very kind of trivial, superficial way. And of course, in the kind of Arab Spring revolutions, although they featured in our media, didn't feature in the media in those countries very much at all. So the literal revolutions tend not to find their way onto the television screens. But the other thing, and perhaps for me the more interesting potential meaning of it, is this word televised. Because I've been thinking about televised, and yes, of course, it means put on television. But it seems to me to be a word that sounds a little bit like those other words that end in "ized", like homogenized or sterilized or cauterized or pasteurized. It's the name of a kind of treatment, the way you would treat something. You know, you would take some milk which has got life forms growing in it, and you would put it through a sterilization process, and the life in that substrate would be destroyed. Or you would take milk and you would homogenize it. You'd squeeze it through a filter which breaks up the particles into separate little globules and distributes them evenly, so all the difference and the distinction is erased, and everything is the same and everything is disconnected. Or cauterized, you know, you would apply a kind of painful solution to a painful problem and just stem the blood flow, because that's, you know, the topical need at that moment seems to be to stem the blood flow. And televised seems to be, at least for me, one of those kind of words. It's the name for a process whereby a certain kind of culture, a certain kind of life form that's growing in a certain kind of substrate is treated in a certain way. You know, it's squeezed through the filter of centralized media. You know, rather than being distributed across social media, it's squeezed through the filter of centralized broadcast media, and becomes televised in the process. All of the complexity and the intelligence and the diversity and the difference and the shared ownership and the shared intelligence and the wisdom of that kind of diversity is squeezed out of it, and it becomes televised. It becomes part of television. Or all the life is destroyed in it, in the way that life forms are destroyed in the pasteurization process. All the life that exists in the social media platform is destroyed by being pushed into the hot lights of a televisation process. So this televised, you know, is a kind of ultimate threat. I think it's a threat that is at work right now in social media, with something like Sopa Pipa being the most recent incarnation of that. You know, the Sopa Pipa and those kind of political and corporate gestures are attempts to televise, cauterize, pasteurize, homogenize social media and turn it into television, you know. And that's, in that regard, this phrase of Gil Scott-Heron's, "the revolution will not be televised," it isn't just a pointing out the recognition that if we ever see a revolution, it won't be on television, but it's also a kind of call to arms. You know, it's a kind of call to arms. This revolution will not be televised. We will not let the revolution of social media, whatever that means. It doesn't just mean this kind of social media. It doesn't just mean the social media of YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all of those kind of things. It also means the social media of people talking to one another, of sharing and gathering mutual knowledge, and finding a way to be politically active with that mutual knowledge. It's, you know, the call to arms is to not allow that social media to be reduced and to approach the banal condition of television. The revolution should not be televised.